How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tear Talk. Guys, great discussion today. Kind of the title of this episode is The Softer the Why, the Harder the Inmates Push. And we're going to talk about real quick the importance of how we justify our directives, how we justify the authority that we have over the inmate population. I think it's a needed dialogue because at any moment, if you have a weak justification, you start to become hesitant. And hesitancy allows for the inmates to navigate or circumvent your authority. And the reason why I want to have this dialogue is I want people to realize that the strength of your authority comes from internally. It comes from you and not from something on the outside. It's not conditional. And the reason why I'm having this discussion, Russ, real quick, is sometimes you'll get these officers that will say that they would never do anything wrong, whether it be undue relationship with an inmate, bringing contraband, whatever the case may be, because of, I don't want to lose my job, or I don't want to go to jail, I don't want to lose my family. And it makes it seem that doing the right thing is conditional. And it's conditional based on external consequences. The one thing that they're not saying is, I won't do the wrong thing because morally I know what's right and I'm motivated to do what is right. And the reason why I wanted to have this dialogue is I even think when it comes into developed undue relationships, when you start to develop trust with an inmate, which should never be happening, you should always be setting that boundary. The inmate can trust you, of course, but you trusting them, on the other hand, is not where you want to be in your career because it starts to shift the influence into their hands. And the biggest concern I have with that manipulated trust is that the inmates will find a way to minimize those external consequences, because once you trust the inmate, then you're going to trust that they're not going to turn you in. And therefore, all those conditions we just mentioned, those external consequences, become non-existent. And then you got to ask yourself, well, what is really moving you forward to do what is right? Because now consequences are no longer there. The inmate's not going to turn you in. So why are you really doing what is right? And I did a show a while ago, Russ, about a female that got a love letter from an inmate. And she did what was correct. She reported it. The inmate found out, and he did go up to her and he said, hey, why did you turn in the love letter? And she basically said, I did it because it's against policy and procedure. So she went with external rules. And it made sense to her. And for many people, they may think that's great because she's holding up to the expectations of the agency. But now the inmate tends to think, well, if it wasn't for the rules or policy procedures, then we can be together. I think the right answer for this woman, if she felt the need to justify it to the inmate, would be because I did it because it's the right thing. I did it because we're not here to have relationships. And the good thing about that internal motivation is it also reminds you. It reminds you why you're doing the job. I'm not doing the job and doing what's right because I don't want to get caught. I'm doing what's right because I got trusted to do what's right, and that's what I'm going to do. And that makes the foundation very hard to shake. But Russ, what's your thoughts on people that justify not doing anything wrong by focusing on external consequences?
Kind of, I would say the split or the schism there, as it were, is the attempt to make some sort of preservation of the developed relationship as it is. Right? We're trying to let the person off easy. Like in any other relationship that would be a different one, what would we say? We would say something ridiculous like, "Oh, it's not you, it's me," or "I'm just not in a good spot right now for this type of relationship." But when we bring that back to the way that we try and handle the inmate population, it's that we are trying to let them down easy, or we're trying to make it seem like this relationship means more than it does, or maybe worse yet of all, this relationship actually does mean more. And I think that, people in this day and age tend to be a little too much on the soft side. And, what we really want or what we should be doing is giving them, the firmest no possible, saying, hey, no, that is not going to happen. And leave it, in my opinion, with no qualifiers at all, if possible. Not, no, I'm not going to do that. The sergeant won't like it, or I'm not going to do that. It's policy and procedure. Instead, just no, absolutely not. And if they persist and it's a qualifier they want, you can just say something to the effect of, that's just not the way I roll. I would never do something like that. Maybe even so far as, hey, you know what, my oath means more to me than what you've just suggested. So, this idea that we can somehow preserve the rapport that we've built, it's illusory, because, rapport with an inmate, respect with an inmate, only goes as far as you stopping yourself from holding them accountable, or you saying the word no.
Yeah, Russ, and that's powerful. And again, we'll keep this quick because me and Russ have a very good show coming your way. It's a series of show. It's the first part of the 5-part series that we have to film tomorrow. It's about how we define success in corrections. But I wanted to get this out there because, I don't know, as I'm talking to individuals, I see them say that a lot. Like, I'm not going to do anything wrong because of these reasons. And not that you want to challenge perspectives, but it gets to a point where you're like, hey, doing what's right is never conditional, it's really truly based on, what you're supposed to do, because it has to be done. And there is a shift here, Russ, real quick. I just want to mention, I have seen officers come in with a weak mindset. And then what happens here is they do start justifying that they wouldn't do anything wrong because of these external consequences. Then eventually it starts to shift where they may start subtly saying, well, if I was to do something wrong, not that I would, but I could do it in these ways and not get caught. And then it's like, wow, so something happened here because you were so concerned prior about the job, going to jail and losing your family. And now in your head, you're playing out ways, let's say you can mess around with this inmate and not get caught. So something's already in your head. And the next thing you know, down the line, the person winds up getting caught. And it's crazy because even though I've also seen people say, yeah, there was no way that person's going to get caught up there, because you can hear them every day where, yeah, no inmate is worth losing my job over, or no inmate is worth losing my family over, no inmate's worth going to jail over, going to prison over. And we think on the surface, that's great. What resolve? And then later on, we're wondering, oh my God, 6 months later, this guy's arrested or this woman's arrested. And wow, what happened? It's because they never believed in doing what was right. All they did was try to not get caught, technically. So now when they start to see ways to get around it, now there's some trust they have going on with the inmate, because the inmate will say, hey, if I don't report you, then what's really stopping us from, furthering along what we're trying to accomplish here? And now there's nothing. And now the officer has not even his own morals to stand on. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, it's, when you look at it, from the perspective of, okay, now we're going to go from just rapport to establishing trust, and the trust is established so that, nobody rats each other out, then, that's just a house of cards. And from the inmate's perspective, the way they always view it is everything is, situational morality. They're going to rat you out from the get-go. But if you're being fed from the possibility of, well, maybe they won't rat me out, maybe they can be trusted, then you're already as far down the ladder as they are, in my opinion. So, if you're going to do this job, you really, truly have to know where and what your North Star is. And your North Star is the values that you carry with you. And most importantly, from my perspective, because it's what really anchors us, is what does our oath tell us that we have to do? And you can't just, run around and decide that, hey, your oath is an inconvenience and you can pick it up or drop it, whenever it becomes necessary to do one or the other. Um, you know, Executing the things that you have to do in your job with that type of mindset is going to wear thin and get you in trouble, because sooner or later you are going to make a decision based on the wrong set of values and principles. And then when you do that, you can never come back. And too many times, I've just seen where, hey, someone has decided that, they are not really interested in doing the job per se. They're just interested in making the money from it. And doing the job means having to fulfill the full mantle of your authority and responsibility. And all of that is incorporated within, the oath that we take and what we aspire to do and be. I mean, is it worth trying to think of our job and having pride in it if we can't actually have pride in it because we've decided to, wink our oath on and on just in a situational fashion? I hope that made sense. I kind of got a little rambly there, but
No, it does, man. If you want to kind of leave on the outside of who you are, what governs your choices in this profession, then there's no protection. People can just grab it and do what they will. But if you hold it inside, if you're motivated by an internal drive as opposed to being some conditional situation that is really based on consequences, I'm sorry, man, that's not going to be enough for you to deal with the pressures of the games that are going to be played. And again, it's just a dialogue I want to quickly have. Me and Russ got a very lengthy series we're going to be doing. I'm looking forward to it. I got about 20 questions that me and Russ got to discuss tomorrow. So I just want to put something out there real quick. Russ, I don't know, anything you want to say in closing on this one, or it's a quick one, I know, but.
yeah, I think that early on in your career, what happens is as you're trying to establish your foundation, it's not always apparent, how things are supposed to work inside a prison or inside a jail. And, sometimes you just have to, go through and figure out, what the best operating principles are. And the best operating principle, in my opinion, that you can have is to really truly be about, the foundations of what the law tells you, of what the law tells you of the way that things should be, and the law dictates those things. If you don't ever break away from those things, you're never going to have any great concerns. So that's why, when I think about, and I've seen some guys just like this, ostensibly, they're always talking about the law, or they're always talking about the Constitution. But then as soon as, it's inconvenient for them, or they don't realize, hey, the Constitution doesn't give us the choice to decide, whose rights we're going to protect and whose rights we're not going to protect. And that we don't get to walk all over someone just because we wear a badge. And in fact, we're quite constrained by what the Constitution actually says, because that actually applies to us more than most other people. Then they're just, they're just really, kind of a half-ass officer. They kind of, just want to be in it for whatever they derive in the way of ego or anything else. And the job is really about, trying to set at least some of your ego aside, because I do want people to really, have pride in what they do, because this is a hard job, and everyone all day long should be clapping for, every officer out there. But some people, they're just half an officer, and they're just, half-assing their way through it. And for them, they're really not anchored in what the foundations of law and policy and procedure tell us that we should be.
Yeah, and guys, at the end, you have to believe in, what you do, what you're expected to carry out. I know when you first come in this profession, you got to play the role before you actually become it. But with that said, it only happens when you truly believe in what you're meant to carry out. And that doesn't come because it's conditional. If it's conditional, it could sway. It comes when it's rooted, it's founded. I think that's something that we have to teach more to the rookies. Like, I mean, literally, when they're given an order, going back, do you believe in what you're, the order that you're providing? Do you believe in that directive? You know, I mean, in the end, it's not even so much about justifying it to the inmate, because the inmate's going to see it in your actions. So if you don't believe in it, the inmate's going to see hesitancy. But if you do believe in it, the inmate's going to see resolve. So how you justify it in your head will translate into how you're seen. So again, I just wanted to give people a stronger ground to stand on, because in the end, if you leave it out there, the ground's going to shift and you're going to fall. So just know what you do that is right is not because it's conditional based on getting caught if you do something wrong. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.